I will cover at least 10 revelations of Lue Elizondo's book, Imminent, Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs, that published today. I've read most of it since most of the book was leaked. I was waiting until today to talk about it, though. It's an excellent book, well written, and provides clarity on why this subject is so important. I think Lue Elizondo can explain why this subject is vital in a way no one else can, based upon his unique experiences. That itself is worth the price of admission. Be warned. If you want to read this book without knowing any of the content, then now is your chance to turn off my video. Nevertheless, this video is certainly not a replacement for the book, and I haven't even read the entire manuscript yet. Before we get into my 10 revelations, let's take a look at what Bryce Zabel of the Need to Know podcast had to say about Lue's book.
This is a great book. I mean, I'm moved by it. I thought yours was a great book because, again, the detail in it and the work that went into it. But here's what's great about Lue Elizondo's book. It's lived experience. I mean, this is what the guy did. And for people that still want to say, oh, well, I think he's a disinformation agent or this, that, or the other thing, I just think that's bullshit. You read this book, you totally understand. The guy is pretty much who he says he is.
It's interesting that Bryce said he was moved by it. I have a similar take to that some people will really, really dislike. Especially those who think Lue's a disinformation agent, or that the phenomena can do no wrong and we're not allowed to be concerned about it at all. I consider Lue's book a spiritual book because it is part of the tapestry that encompasses the shift humanity is going through right now. Let's call that the disclosure portal we're all going through. That shift, in my estimation, will change humanity's relationship with reality. Perhaps the most significant component of this shift is internalizing that we are not the apex predators on this earth that we once thought we were. And I will go even further. It's likely that God Almighty loves these creatures every bit as much as he loves us, regardless of our moral standing before him. Bryce's co-host Ross Coulthart, also a journalist, had this to say about Lue Elizondo.
The guy has been through hell recently. He needs our support. He's been very much the point of the spear on the issue of pushing for the government to be more transparent and to disclose what, if anything, it knows on non-human intelligence engaging with this planet. The guy's got balls, and I've met him. I've met his family. It's a deeply intimate insight into the man, and I feel privileged. I feel very, very privileged to be able to tell that story.
In this episode of Need to Know, Ross Coulthart was unable to discuss Lue's book because he was sent an advance copy and signed an NDA not to talk about it until it's published, I presume. However, on August 23rd, Lue will be interviewed by Ross Coulthart on News Nation at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be seeing a lot of Lue Elizondo going forward. We're living in exciting times. This is only the beginning. Before we even proceed, I just want to say that there is a link to Lue Elizondo's book in the description box below, and I recommend that if you're interested in the UFO topic and the disclosure process, that you pick his book up, because it really is a very high quality book, and historically it is an extremely important piece, and that's for sure, in my opinion. I'm going to go over roughly 10 revelations, maybe more. Not necessarily all coming from the book. For example, we're going to cover a New York Times article that came out about the book. And so let's continue. Today, August 18th, Lue Elizondo dropped a video on his Twitter account and his Instagram account talking about what he's up to. Let's play that And I think it underscores how busy he's going to be in the coming days, weeks, and months. He's also going to be on CBS Mornings on Monday, and I look forward to watching that interview with him. And I already mentioned that he's going to be on News Nation, I think, on August 23rd with Ross Coulthart.
Hi guys, Lue Elizondo here on an Amtrak train right now at the Philly train station on the way to New York to have some meetings up there to continue the topic of disclosure and in order to expand this conversation to the world. So wish me luck, guys. Take care. Bye.
On August 16th, an article in the New York Times published by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean titled "A Memoir Offers an Insider's Perspective into the Pentagon's UFO Hunt." I'll just share two quotes from it, and I quote, "In an interview, Elizondo said that he had firsthand knowledge of what he was discussing, but that his security clearances prevented him from explaining the source of his knowledge. He got Pentagon approval to publish his book, partly by attributing some of the information to other sources whose comments had previously been approved. Elizondo also said he was not approved to discuss his involvement in any other secret projects beyond the program he once led," almost suggesting that he has been involved in another UFO program. All I'm saying is it suggests that. I don't know the absolute truth. Another quote, Elizondo said that he met with the Aero director and his staff for 3 hours in a secure facility on February 2nd, 2023, and gave them classified information about the history of the crash retrieval program. So if Lue Elizondo gave classified information about the crash retrieval program to Sean Kirkpatrick, then obviously that information is official, because information that's not official is not classified. And as Joe Mergia pointed out, Lue is not the only one to have given this kind of testimony to Sean Kirkpatrick. So there's not much more for me to say about these two quotes other than they're quite interesting. Let's continue. Now, the copy of the book that I was able to read was not the entire manuscript, and a lot of times it didn't seem like it translated to the text document properly, so I'll do the best I can. I'm going to cover something that Lue Elizondo reported the ATIP team discerned about how these UAP technologies work. Here's a direct quote. "Now imagine that you were able to engineer space to your needs. Imagine you were able to enclose your aircraft in a bubble that renders it immune from the effects of gravity. You could now fly without wings because you no longer need lift, and you wouldn't need jet engines or propellers because," and then maybe it was taken out from the Dopser process, I don't know. But what they concluded or assessed at ATIP is that time and space is being engineered in some sense. I guess in the vernacular, they call it anti-gravity bubbles. And one of the things that was stated in the book is the reason flying saucers are the shape they are is because the bubbles that are engineered would perfectly encapsulate the flying saucer. So there's a reason for why flying saucers are so common and why it is the shape that it is. However, if you want a larger object, and so I think it was said in the book that because of the immense amount of power required to create these bubbles, you can only make them so big. So on that account, if you want a larger craft, you could have something like a cigar, where there's maybe a bubble on one side of the cigar and the other, keeping it above ground and flying, so to speak. And then with a triangle, and there's been reports of absolutely enormous sized triangles, like the size of a small town almost. And Elizondo wrote in the book that in this scenario, you would need a bubble on every corner of the triangle. And if it was a really large triangle, you'd have a bubble on every corner, and you'd also have a bubble in the center, as I recall. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, getting into how the technology might work. To the degree that they're certain this is what's going on with these technologies, I don't know. Bear in mind, the way I read the book with this text file wasn't the most appealing scenario to read it. I'm definitely going to start from the beginning once I purchase the book and have it all formatted perfectly. And we'll be going over aspects of the book again, but I just wanted to publish something the day that it drops because I think that's important. I believe Hal Puthoff was the chief scientist when ATIP was running. And here's another quote from the book that relates to the technologies, the alleged technologies. And I quote, "Hal's theory explained why some people reported missing time. As you approach such a craft, you begin to experience time closer to how it is experienced in the bubble. This could also alter a witness's perception of the size of the craft. The craft that looks small from a distance at first glance may actually be quite large up close." The book goes much more in depth into the technologies, how they might work, and the physics that might be operating. I just gave you a very tiny snippet. But it's interesting to me that even just examining the technological side of this enigma is utterly fascinating and would elicit so much conversation that we're not currently having because there's an embargo on the reality of this phenomenon. Imagine all 8 billion of us talking about this exotic technology and whether or not humanity can figure it out, and what humanity will be like once they do figure it out, and how much figuring it out might result in saving the earth from environmental devastation or mitigating environmental devastation, how much this technology could help humanity as a whole, how much it could mitigate or eradicate starvation because the power source might be so extraordinary that if we could harness it on our planet, we might be able to create a much better living situation for all people all over the world. And then we could talk about missing time and how that might be connected to the technology. Missing time, of course, is a phenomenon that is often experienced by those that claim they've had these experiences where they've come in proximity to craft or entities. And so, I mean, just by merely looking at the technology, it becomes so crystal clear how much we're missing out on, how much our institutions are missing out on. Now, could this all be some big misunderstanding, a mind virus and all that? Sure, I don't believe that. I think that's unlikely. But if it's not a mind virus and the U.S. government has literally recovered some of these technologies and studied them for decades, and furthermore even tracks them using radar or satellite systems, coming in and out of the ocean, in and out of space into our atmosphere, and our atmosphere into space, and all that. Imagine if we collectively knew all this. Imagine the quality and the wonder of the conversations we would have around the dinner table, around the water cooler, around your child's basketball practice, everywhere. It would I would go so far that it would raise the quality of life. It's funny. I recall hearing J. Christopher King talk a little bit about this. It was on Whitley Strieber's Dreamland. Is that what it's called? Whitley Strieber's podcast. And he was saying that one of the fundamental aspects of the human being, literally one of the it's written into our DNA, is to learn about our universe. We love it. We love it. Learn about nature, learn about our bodies, how it works, learn about science and physics and math and chemistry. We love looking at images from telescopes, deep space. We love our universe. And yet a fundamental component of our universe is being hidden from us because governments have decided it's best not to open this up to humanity. That's a tragedy. And, that's one of the reasons I support Lue Elizondo so much, because he is fighting against that policy that is antagonistic to a basic human drive to learn more about truth. So let's move into orbs. And before I delve into the orb subject, I know that there are skeptics who watch my videos. And some people have even said that I have a bit of a skeptical viewpoint myself. So take that for whatever it's worth. Although I do consider myself a believer, but I acknowledge that I could be wrong at the same time, and I do that very often. But to any skeptics watching this, all I would say is you might be right. All of this might be a mind virus. It might all be misidentifications. And the lack of concrete proof in the public domain may be the indicator of what's really going on. Or it might be more complicated than that. I guess hopefully we'll find out with what's coming down the pipe in the next few months and years with the legislation and new whistleblowers and so forth. But what I want to say is, look, in the event we truly are not alone and we're being engaged by non-human intelligence, if that's a fact that hasn't been demonstrated yet, then you can't possibly tell me that would somehow exist in a vacuum, and we should not be open to other weird possibilities associated with that reality. So keep that in mind as we progress with this book. So I'm going to read a little quote from the book. I phoned Jim. This is Jim Lakatsky, that Elizondo is referencing, who was the manager of OSEP, which was the UFO program before it became ATIP. I can't remember what the letters mean off the top of my head, but anyways, I phoned Jim over our secure line and accepted the role. Count me in. What we do here is very strange, Jim said. You should be prepared for the possibilities that some of that strangeness will impact your personal life. These portfolios are sticky. In the book, Lue mentioned how that was an odd word to describe a portfolio, and he wishes he would have asked him what he meant by that. As it turns out, what Jim Lakatsky meant by sticky is that people who start to work for ATIP start to have very strange experiences that they didn't have prior to ATIP. And I'll give you a very small quote from the book that gets into this, and I quote, and this is Lue Elizondo speaking, of course. I was shocked to find that a lot of my colleagues and I began experiencing firsthand some of these orbs at our homes. In fact, my wife was a complete skeptic on all this. That is, until she saw an orb in our house for herself. We had a long main hallway in the house, and one evening a green glowing ball, probably about the size of a basketball with soft edges that weren't defined, floated down slowly from the kitchen to our bedroom door just below ceiling height, then disappeared into a wall. Hoping Jen caught a glimpse of it, I turned to her, catching the perplexed look on her face. She indeed saw it the entire 10 seconds it was in our house. I'm not going to cite any more quotes. He goes much further into these experiences. But I do recall that Lue said that his neighbors started to see these green orbs, and his daughters saw them as well. I will tell you that I personally think they actually saw what they say they saw, that they're not LARPing or making it up. It'd be, in my opinion, it'd be pretty hard to think you saw a green orb if you didn't. If you are an honest broker and you're sane and your faculties are working properly. I like how Lue characterizes the orb, maybe in this book or in an interview he did, because he's done 2 interviews so far. I think he did one in the Daily Mail, a video interview, and of course, CBS Mornings he did Monday. But he, as I recall, he said he called these orbs UAP. They are UAP. And he doesn't look at it from some kind of spiritual perspective. I don't think he'd ruled that out. But he looked at it as some kind of technology. And that's my inclination as well. And he made it clear that he never saw these orbs prior to working ATIP nor after. And he thinks it's possible that whatever was in control of that orb, or the orbs that he encountered during the time he worked for ATIP, were perhaps looking into him or spying on him because he was looking into them. Isn't that interesting? That's really interesting. I think Lue would be the first one to say, I have no idea why the orbs were there. And I think that's what he said. He was speculating. But that just goes to show, if what Lue says happened truly did happen, that we're not dealing with a phenomenon that is completely indifferent to us. If they're not, it doesn't mean they care about us, but they are interested in what we're doing. That's why people have experiences with the phenomenon. That's why there's reports of guards at nuclear missile sites having encounters with these objects that are presumably trying to get information on our nuclear arsenal and technologies. But I just thought it was really interesting that Lue thought maybe he was speculating he was being surveilled by whatever was controlling these orbs, because ATIP was looking into them. It's 9:21 p.m. August 19th. Tomorrow, of course, Lue Elizondo book drops. A huge development occurred. I'm going to go through it meticulously. Not necessarily all of it. There's more tweets that are relevant, but I'm going to cover some of the major tweets. Maybe I'll do a separate video at some point going into this as an exclusive video. But let's just go over these tweets, and then I'll give you my commentary. It's really interesting, and I'm just beginning to peel back the onion on what has occurred. So let's start with, on April 14th, Harold Malmgren wrote, I was reminded today that I had met and engaged with Jeff Bezos' grandfather at Los Alamos in 1963 when I was leader of costing the design and build of first anti-missile defense system for the Joint Chiefs of Staffs. Hearing from him his alleged work on reverse engineering of UAP objects. So allegedly, Jeff Bezos' grandfather worked on reverse engineering UAP objects. And this is, April 15th. So Final Fantasy Nomics responds, "You're awesome." And then on August 19th, today, right now, at 6:16 p.m., Harold wrote, 60 plus years ago, I was provided highest level classifications to lead DoD work on nuclear weapons and anti-missile defense. Informally briefed on other world technologies by CIA's Richard Bissell, who had been in charge of Skunk Works, Area 51, Los Alamos, etc., but sworn to secrecy. And then Ross Coulthart, the journalist from Australia, chimes in, extraordinary new admission from Harold Malmgren that he was briefed on other world technologies by CIA's Richard Bissell. Malmgren is a former senior aide to U.S. Presidents John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, and Gerald Ford. Journalist Christopher Sharp chimed in, this is truly astonishing. This is a serious player, advisor to multiple U.S. presidents. People should be paying attention. And then Harold responds to a comment by Caden Schaefer. Caden Schaefer wrote, no, I am asking a real question. Huge Trek fan here. So any alien tech confirmed in my lifetime would be huge. We just don't hear from anyone briefed, just informally briefed or confided in on a deathbed, to which Harold responded, read the book. He's referring to Lue Elizondo's upcoming book. Then watch comments of others. He's anticipating, obviously, that others are going to come forward, as he has just come forward right now. Bissell briefed me off the record after his resignation as CIA Deputy Director Special Ops. I am not seeking public confirmation status, just telling my personal story. Confirmations will be up to others directly involved in coming months. And then he wrote here he dropped the CBS Mornings segment that Lue Elizondo was part of, and he wrote Imminent, of course, the title of the book. A book to be published tomorrow, August 20th, by Luis Elizondo on what our government knows about UAP or alien visitors to Earth. This book breaches a dam and I expect will likely be gradually followed by more awakening disclosures ahead. And I wrote, let it begin. Now, something that I have spoken about in the past is that Lue Elizondo coming forward, publishing this book, is very courageous in many respects. David Grush having come forward in June of 2023 was very courageous. Many courageous people have come forward trying to put an end to the embargo on this reality. And I said that Lue Elizondo's book getting published will create greater courage for others because courage is contagious. So Harold Malmgren came forward just like he did, and that's not a trivial matter. Look at this guy's resume. This is a very serious player. And I anticipate other people will come forward because, secrecy has a shelf life. And at some point, it just unravels. And that's what I think is happening right now. So I think in the coming weeks and months and the remainder of 2024, things will get real interesting because I do believe we're being lied to about UFOs. And that lie, I think it's going to start getting dismantled. Now, as you may be aware, analyst Matthew Pines has recently publicly said that a really big person who we would recognize who's been in the news is going to come forward very soon supporting David Grush's allegations about recovered craft and biologics and a cover-up. However, Matthew Pines made it very clear that Harold Malmgren that we were just discussing is not that person. So Harold Malmgren is independent of that person. Just for the record. I was about to move on to the next segment, but then I saw this from Harold Malmgren. He's quote tweeting a Lue Elizondo tweet where Lue Elizondo wrote, "A big thanks to CBS Mornings, Gayle King, and friends for having me on this morning, CBS Mornings." And Harold Malmgren at 9:02 p.m., August 19th, wrote, "I don't know you, but having had respected friends urge me to look into your book, I went further and urged everyone to pay attention. Seems my boost aroused a huge Twitter response. Good luck with your attempt to raise visibility of this critically important subject at this time." Let's discuss a few more revelations from his book and then call it a night. Here's one from Chapter 9, Into the Void. I will read an excerpt, and I quote, "One day I showed up at work to find that Jay had shared a stunning video via email. The footage was shot by a naval aviator on a routine mission through the cockpit camera, as if over the shoulder. The audio begins with typical jabber and call sign lingo. The pilot is trying to get a visual on what the radar is seeing. Still no visual, says the voice. I am right on it, but still no visual. Another voice over the radio says, it should be right. Just then, a wedge-shaped craft zooms by the cockpit as close as 50 feet. The pilot erupts into several expletives, similar to what you might hear people in the audience of a horror movie utter when a monster or killer leaps out of hiding. When we slowed down the video frame by frame, it was clear why the pilot was so frazzled. It was not any type of aircraft that we or our enemies have. It was completely alien." So that's a really fascinating excerpt and demonstrates, according to Lue Elizondo, the sheer level of fidelity evidence they have of craft that just don't seem to come from any government or private entity and seem to have been engineered by something else. And I'll just add two little tidbits that I'm not going to go into. You will have to buy the book to even get any depth on it, and I didn't go into full depth of the stuff that I covered. I barely scratched the surface of this book, I would argue. But I'll just say that in the book, Lue Elizondo discusses having handled alleged alien implants. That's number one. And number two, in the book, he discusses having coordinated with the Navy and other branches to create Project Interloper, an attempt to lure mysterious craft, non-human intelligence, into the vicinity and record them with high-tech equipment. They were out in the ocean, and they were going to be out in the ocean. The plan was to put a bunch of nuclear assets in one little place, since UFOs, from what I hear, from what people involved say, are very attracted to nuclear power and capabilities. So we're going to leave it at that. Obviously, a link to the book is in the description below. I think the book is excellent, and I highly recommend it. And the link below is an Amazon affiliate link, so if you buy something, I'll get a small commission from it. And today, August 20th, I will be on Matt Ford's show, The Good Trouble Show, at 8 p.m. Eastern, discussing the book. So I'll put a link to that as well if you want to watch me, Matt Ford, and one or two other people discuss the book. It should be fun. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You could become a YouTube member. You could become a patron. You could give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below. Or you could just slap a like on this bad boy, and I will appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.